Our last major topic in grade 12 web design is what's called active server pages or dynamic pages. And basically what that means is that most of the thinking for these kinds of websites happens not on your computer where your browser takes whatever's sent down to you and displays it to you, but it happens on a server that has usually a database. And what happens is you type in something and the computer looks up that information and recreates that information and puts it in a nice little display. So there's like a secondary thing that happens besides your browser looking at the final result. So that's what ASP stands for, Active Server Pages, and we're using one called ASP.NET from Microsoft, and this is the one we're going to be using. Now, to get this one, what you could do is you could start off from my website and pick IDC 40W and then click on Visual Web Developer. That'll take you to this site right here. Now this site is the 2010 version. I don't want you to use that one because it's not installed in our computers. It's a little bit too strong for our computers. So you go down here to 2008 Express and you press it. Then what you do is you slide down a little bit more and it'll show you all the different things that are part of 2008, and pick this one right here. So here it is right here, Visual Web Express, all right, and that's the one you should install on your computer. Now, other things you need to know when you are in Edmodo. Okay, I've got lots of information here, lots of videos. Most of these are made by Microsoft. Of course, I'm going to make a couple like the one I'm doing right now. Today's lesson is going to be on web forms, and so I would recommend that you watch this video after I'm done if you're still stuck. You could also watch this one and this one down here called page layout. So there's a number of them that you could look at. Okay, but the most important one would be this one right here. Okay, so that would be more than enough, and that would give you a really good idea of what I'm trying to cover, and it probably has a lot of the examples I'm going to do with you. Okay, so let's get started. So today what we're going to do is take a look at more controls that you can add on an ASP.NET website. Stuff that you would not usually have on a regular website. Okay, so today we're going to learn to make forms like this. And if you look at this form carefully, basically there's some words there which you can just type yourself, or you can make it as a label. This is important, that's a text box. Okay, and this is a different type of thing. This thing is called a drop-down list. Then you've got these little circle things, and these are called radio buttons. And then you can have a checkbox here, and then an OK button to actually start the whole thing. These other two I'll explain to you in a second. Another thing I want you to know is that, watch, you can move stuff around here. Now, remember, in regular HTML, basically wherever you type it, that's where it stays, and you can't move it. Now, when we learned the cascading style sheets, we learned that you could put stuff wherever you wanted, and that was called absolute positioning. And so if you press that, all of these can be moved wherever you want. There's another way that I'm going to teach you on the next lesson, which is pure style sheets, but this is how you could do it. And when you press them, you got to grab it from the top part and move it across. Okay, just want to run this for a second just to give you an idea what it does. Okay, so you type in your name there, you can pick something. Now watch, as I press it, it'll tell me what I picked. Okay, then you can click one of these, and notice with radio buttons you can only pick one or the other. There's a check mark if you want, and then I press OK, and it basically accepts it. Now what if, let me start it again, what if I hadn't typed my name? And that's what that other little thing is right there, that red thing. What if I had picked something here, picked this, and then pressed OK? It would say, hey, that's a required field. And maybe you've noticed this. Sometimes if you buy something online, or you fill out a form online and you forget one thing, or you don't type it in right, it gives you an error. Okay, so that's kind of called a field validator. So there's a number of different things that you can do when you're typing in these new kind of things called an ASP.NET website. Let's learn how to make one of these very quickly. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but this thing right here, like that, you haven't seen that before, and you haven't seen that before, so I want to make sure you understand how to do that. Okay, so we're going to go to File, New Website. Always pick ASP.NET website. Make sure it says C# here, and then make it point to wherever on when you click Browse. Okay, I've got it going to my temp drive here on my computer. So I'll press OK. All right, and what happens is you've got a blank screen, and there's the div thing, and I like to always just stretch this out and put all my stuff in that section. You don't have to, but it's kind of a nice organized way to do it. Now you notice the first thing that was on my website was the name, and then I dragged a text box right there, right? Okay, and then farther down there was that drop-down list, and that's this thing right here, and I'll drag it on right now. Now what's cool about a drop-down list is you can right here put in all the words you want there. So let's pretend we're trying to pick our favorite city. So I'll press Edit Items, and I'll just type in a couple of them, of course Hamilton. I press Tab there, and then I'll pick Toronto. Tab again, and one more, I'll pick Montreal. Okay, and then we'll press OK. Now, another thing you need to do, and this is kind of another theme of today, this thing called auto postback. When something happens on the screen, you need it to be refreshed. So when I pick something, it's not actually going to do anything until it automatically posts back. So you have to actually enable that. Okay, you'll see where the programming comes in for that in a second. Another thing you saw was those little radio buttons. So you might have something like favorite food here, right? And you'd have two choices. You might have hamburgers and hot dogs. So what you do is you press the radio button and you drag it there. Okay, I'll drag another one right underneath it. Okay, now I'm just going to show you this right now before I fix it. When I run this, here's what we're going to have so far. There's going to be a space to type our name. You're going to be able to pick your city. And when I press this, they both got picked at the same time. That's no good. The way the radio buttons are supposed to work is you pick one and the other one unpicks itself, or vice versa. So what you need to know is when you pick radio buttons, you have to make them the same family. They have to be part of the same group, so to speak. So the way you do that is you go to something called, I think probably group. There it is, group name, and we'll just call them the food group. And I'll do that one also, and I'll call it the food group. Okay? And then the last thing I want to have on here is a button that sort of says accept everything, and you can actually call it the accept button or the OK button, whatever. Okay, I'm just going to call it the OK button. Alright, and let's try that again. Okay, so again, you pick your city, you pick your favorite food, and notice this time it only picks one or the other, and then you press OK. Alright, now let's do some programming. Like, big deal, I picked Hamilton, but how did it know that? And if I was going to do something with this later on in another part of my website, how did I know I picked Hamilton or Montreal or Toronto or whatever else? Well, you got to do some computer programming. Okay, so first thing is we're going to grab a label and we're going to drag it right beside the word Hamilton. Okay, and then I'm going to double click on Hamilton. I'm going to go into the underground. This is where you code, and you're going to learn these new words today called if statements. And basically you're going to say if the drop down list 1 dot text equals Hamilton. Okay, then you're going to write down the squiggly line and another squiggly line, and you're going to write down label 1 dot text equals you chose Hamilton. Okay, so here's the completed thing. This is the way you would write it. So if you chose text Hamilton, you could say those words. If you chose Toronto, you say those words. If you chose Montreal, you say those words. Notice there's two equal signs when you're saying, hey, did you pick that one in the list? Watch how this works. Okay, so I pick Montreal. It says you chose Montreal. Toronto, so it knows exactly what I'm picking. Okay, that's kind of cool, right? One more thing. What if when you're filling out this form, all right, and you notice here I should have put some topics here. What if you fill out this form and you don't type in your name, you forget it for some reason? How do you deal with that? Okay, so let's go back and we'll fix them. And by the way, while I'm here, if you want to put something in there, all right, what you would do is go down to text, and we can put hamburger for this one, and hot dog for this one. Okay, so there's words there. Anyway, right here, what if you don't type something in? Well, then there's this thing called a validator. Okay, so there's a folder here called validation. You know how you got all these different things. There's all kinds of stuff. Well, one of the sections is called validation, and we're going to drag required field validator right there. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to yell at you if you don't type in your name, and we're going to say, please enter your name. All right, then we're going to slide up here, and it's going to say, well, please enter your name. What do you mean? Control to validate. What that means is watch the text box. If he doesn't type in something there, because this is called the required field validator, then yell at them. Okay, so watch this now. Now, I'm going to type the city, I'm going to pick my food, and then how do you know when you are done? Well, this is what that OK button's for, right? So I think I'm done. I'm going to press OK, OK, send in my order, or do whatever you want next. I press OK, and it goes, oh, you forgot this. So you got to type it in. Okay, and then you're good. Now, with this knowledge, you can do all kinds of neat things. Here's an example for a band page. So what I've got here is a table. It's got 3 images. These images come from over here on the left-hand side. See that little thing right there, image? I drew a little box there. It became the image. Now, the image didn't go in there, though. Okay, what you had to do is make sure you had a folder called images, and you put all your images in there. And then, watch what I did. There's the property, and I went down to the thing that says image URL, and I pressed the 3 dots. And I clicked on this person's name, Thad. Okay? Then I did the same thing for this person and this person. Then what I did is I made them all invisible. So see how there's a property called visible false? So you might notice when I do this website, at the beginning there's nobody there. And then when I pick a person, that person's picture shows up. Okay? So that's a possible application. And if you think about it, we used to do that in JavaScript, but you know what? This is a little bit shorter, but it involves another kind of programming called C#. So let me show you the code for this. You double click here, and you go into the underground. Hey, there's that stuff I just showed you 2 minutes ago. If Dropdown List. Now this one, there's another way to do dropdown. Selected index, which means if it was the first guy, second, or third, then make that person's picture visible and the other 2 invisible, and also write in the guy's name at the bottom. If you don't like it that way, you could also go like this still, all right, which would be perfectly fine. Dot text equals equals, and then in quotes, Thad. Both ways are good. Watch, I'll run it again, and I'll just show you. And I'll pick Thad, and there he is. Okay? Okay, to finish up this introduction to web forms, I want to show you this one more thing. Keep an eye on this. Welcome to the band page. So the first time it ever started, it says that. Now watch what happens after I click on these guys. Changes. It says band member info. Okay, so how did it one time do something and another time do something else? Well, there's something kind of neat when you make a computer program, and it's called form load. So what I'm going to do is you usually click somewhere off the screen a little bit, you double click, and you get into this thing called page load. You're in the underground like you were before, except now there's this thing called form load, and this is what gets always loaded up every time a page gets loaded. Only problem is certain things you want to do once, and that's it. So there's this special word you use when you get this loaded page up, and it's called page is postback, which means has this page ever been redrawn? Because like maybe you've been on it once and now you've done some stuff while you're there, and now it gets redone, this load page. Well, the very, very, very first time you ever go to this website, postback's going to be false. Okay? So this is how you say, hey, is this the very first time you're here? Then you do this. Now, after you pick one of these guys and you show them their face, there's an auto postback again. Remember that thing I showed you before with the drop down? It's going to come back to here. So if I didn't put this in here, it would say welcome again. What I want now is, no, this isn't the first time back now. So this is going to be true. It's postback time, so we're going to go down to here. And from then on, every time I go back here, this hasn't been the first time, so it'll keep going to this one now. So the very, very first time, auto postback is false, because that means it hasn't never been done before, and after that, it does this one. Okay?